talk Last Man on Earth. So, what were your preconceived notions? We talked about a little bit before when the show premiered. What were your preconceived notions going into the show? One more time, just to reiterate.
Yes, into the show as a whole, I was incredibly skeptical from the very first preview that I saw. I mean, it was an instant eye roll for me. Like, oh, here they go, trying to capitalize on the sort of post-apocalyptic craze that's been sweeping every and all forms of media. And I really enjoy post-apocalyptic stuff. Like, pretty much all my favorite stories are set in these kinds of dystopian futures, or the post-Earth, post-civilization, something new.
Mad Max.
Yes, I'm super excited for that. But but for some reason, I was in the thick of The Walking Dead too, so it just kind of seemed really silly at the time. And I was like, how are they going to make this work? Are we going to spend an entire show with a crazy person? And we do, but not in the sense that I thought we were going to. And so was it you who originally brought the show up for this hangout, or I'm trying to remember how that went?
Yes, I want to say yes. If I'm wrong, just work with me anyways.
I'm going to attribute it to you because there was something that made me budge, and I know that we had talked about it before as well. But yeah, so preconceived notions was like, this isn't gonna last. This is gonna burn out really fast. And I was actually incredibly captivated when I first got started. And I remember we talked about the first episode, and the show certainly changed a lot from then, but I'm really glad that I gave it the time of day, because now we're at a very interesting point in the game. So
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting show. I think the pilot is still one of the funniest little TV comedy bits ever. Like, I genuinely believe it's one of the funniest things to ever happen to television. The rest of the show, I don't know if it holds up to that quality. Maybe the finale, but I mean, maybe I need to give it another watch, because the direction the show took was not as advertised, and maybe it's hard to set that aside, because when you have a title like The Last Man on Earth, you assume, he's going to be the last man on Earth, and it wasn't. I mean, that's not a problem with the material in the show. It's just, marketing-wise, I don't like being lied to, I guess.
Yeah,
I have trust issues. Like, this is the stuff that gives me trust issues. But the show is hilarious, I think. I think in the middle-ish episodes, there's some stuff that feels very traditional sitcom-y, with a post-apocalyptic backdrop. But I love Phil Miller. He's a kind of crap human being, but I kind of love hating him. And then he's got a little bit of humanity inside him. Like, I mean, that's spoilers for everything now, I guess, just to be clear. He is just... Okay, well, Will Forte, I think, handles physical comedy very well. Like, just the little bits of... I missed this in the later episodes, but in the earlier ones, when he would come to a door that was made out of glass, he wouldn't really bother opening it. He would just shoot it open.
Yeah.
Like, that was the funniest thing ever to me. It got me every single time. So I hope that comes back in season 2. I initially thought, I had a theory that all the bonus cast members that would start coming along would be all women, so he would be the last man on Earth. It didn't work out. And then I got a second theory that everyone showing up was just an extension of his subconscious and his insecurities, and that he really was the last man on Earth. And as he gets over his insecurities, they'd all start disappearing.
Right.
But then that's not true either, because of the little end credit thing with his brother in space, which I was wondering how they'd incorporate him. Because in the very first episode, you see a picture of his family and his brother, and I was like, you don't just have Jason Sudeikis in a picture and not use him. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really ended up really liking the show, and Phil's little, not full-on redemption, but Carol's belief that he's deep down a good guy. Because new Phil, much more attractive Phil, drops him off in the middle of the desert, just like he did to Todd.
Yep.
Who is incredibly lovable, by the way. That guy, I just want that guy like at Thanksgiving, you know? Just like talking to everyone. He's like the best. It's like, oh, Todd, just good to have you around. Yeah, he left him out there just like he did to Todd, but Phil or Tandy, excuse me, Tandy couldn't leave him out there to die because he can be a dick, but he's not a bad guy. Sort of. And then this new guy left him out there just to rot, to die.
Yep, completely.
Yeah, and so I thought that was very sweet that Carol was like, I don't want to be with a guy who can actually go through with that. I want to be with the guy who can't go through with that. And was like, oh, okay. So what are your overall impressions on the first season of The Last Man on Earth?
You know, I ended up taking kind of a long break from it in the middle just because there was so much like sitcom-y stuff that was happening in the middle.
Yeah,
and it didn't. Yeah, like at times it really felt more like a tragicomedy than even a comedy, simply because like consistently Phil is digging himself into a deeper and deeper and deeper hole, just webs of lies and horniness, and just like, who is this guy and what is going on and how does he think like nothing that he does in this community is sustainable? And it's just so, the one thing that is hilarious to me is the fact that he brings all of these people in himself, and you're like, what did you expect would happen? Like, you get to start over on your terms because you're personally inviting the remnant of the world to come hang out with you with your billboard. Like, it's all such crazy making stuff. And yeah, there was a couple of episodes that kind of dragged and sort of sloshed around in the love triangles and the never-ending pursuit of sex and what the crap ever it was he wanted to do as president of the United States.
He wanted to do everything or everyone.
Yes, correct. But, and I mean, it was there, every single episode I think brought a lot of fun performances, but I really do think that Will Forte and what's her name? Carol, the actress playing Carol.
Kristen Schaal,
I think. Kristen Schaal. Yeah, I know.
Something like that.
Yeah, like they really are for me kind of the lifeblood of the show, and you know, they go through the very necessary divorce process, and like it's hard to tell where exactly the show is going right up until the point that he, like, Phil becomes even more atrocious than atrocious and reveals who he truly is to everyone, and you're like, there's no way that they're going to let him stay there. And then you get this little, like, he finally comes out of his 36-hour self-isolation toilet paper and toothpaste eating session. He comes out and everybody is practically singing Kumbaya around the fire, and then just right then and there, boom, it's all ripped away from him. Like, no, the cycle is broken. It's done, you know? And that for me was a really, it was a very painful and sad moment, because you finally see him realizing, yeah, I can't do this on my own. I was living as if I could, because he was making it pretty much impossible to have any real connection with anyone. He just wanted everything to go his way, and the further away it got, instead of adapting, he just threw as many fits as he possibly could and tried to use his charm and humor to keep himself in everyone's good graces to some extent. So finally, when all that is broken away, I was like, okay, yes, this needed to happen, but is he really going to end up being the last man on Earth again? Are they just pushing reset? But it doesn't feel that way, because it's different now that he's had the rug pulled out from under him and he falls to the floor of his own life, and he's just kind of done. He blows through, 2 days worth of supplies within 20 minutes and is just curled up on the side of the road, ready to just be done.
I forgot about that.
They had like the whole 20 minutes later, and he's just like shaking his empty water bottle and like licking his hand. You're just like, oh my God, dude. And so it was really sweet when Carol showed up and was like, what was that song that you wrote for me? For real. Screw the Moon was the song. I think it was a really good way to bring everything back around. Like I said, there's something that is tying the two of them together. I think they're both extremes in different ways, with like Carol kind of sticking to all these old world ideals, and Phil is just kind of like screw everything, literally. And then when they just kind of come together, and it's like, you know what? We came together as these two complete extremes. Like Carol was all about world repopulation, and with Phil, it's kind of hard to say what he really wanted, but finally they come together after everything that's transpired and really get to actually start over. And like I think that was the perfect way to bring it all back around with all the sort of brokenness that's been left in Tucson. They get to start fresh, and he actually tells Carol some truths about him that he didn't even reveal before when they were married. And and so they drive off into the sunset, and his space brother is up there still trying to contact Houston. And it's kind of fun to see that parallel between the two, how they're trying to reach out from disparate parts of the galaxy. But yeah, it was really, really good. And I do feel like I want to rewatch the season at some point, because now a lot of things are starting to make sense, like why they sort of chose to kind of create this suburban hell of sorts. And you're like, why is this is not the last man on earth. Like, he's consistently, or he thinks that he's getting his manhood robbed from him at every angle. So every man who shows up becomes like the last man on earth because the other man in the community is displaced. And it's really quite silly that way. But yeah, I just watched the final episode a little bit ago, so I have all the stuff that's like, I get it now. Okay, yes, I'm on board. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I mean it's a complicated show because at times I thought the quality was just dipping, never bad, but again, traditional sitcom-y with just a little bit of window dressing of post-apocalyptia.
Yeah.
And yeah, I stopped for a little while too, a couple weeks, and then I just let them sit, and then I caught up again, and now it was glorious. It had a magnificent payoff, and even if the episodes in the middle still don't even hold up to where I felt they were originally, I don't know if the payoff would be as strong if we didn't have those episodes. It's at first I had this uncomfortableness with how Phil would like reset after every episode, like, okay, I'll stop trying to have sex with Melissa, and then he would just like Todd again, and then it would be like a couple episodes it was like that, just rinse repeat, but with like different scenarios and situations and different reasons for doing so, but it's still the base idea that was the same, and it was getting a little stale, but then it wraps up so wonderfully in the finale that I don't even want to hold that against it. I mean, it was so good.
It really was. And I think too, what's kind of important is the fact that consistently over the course of the show, Phil kept going back to that dive bar where he's got all of his inflated ball friends with faces, and he's still going to them to actually talk about life stuff. And that's kind of the thing that reminded me of like, okay, they're not going to get entrenched in this sort of new suburbia thing that's going on. It's providing, I see now that it was more to provide a contrast between like the expectation and like the reality, expecting to like, okay, they're going to start this community, they're going to restart the world, but Phil keeps coming back to this part of the world that's been created by the apocalypse, because he doesn't even feel like he can truly be with people, the very people that he thought he actually wanted. And so the fact that they kind of kept threading in that stuff and sort of his the things that he's clinging on to, whether it's the giant sewage pool or what have you, just those reminders that all is really not as it seems. And yes, there is this sort of life goes on kind of thing, but Phil keeps getting pulled out of that time and time again, and pretending like he can reset when really just every time anything real happens in his life, he has to go be alone with these inanimate objects. So I think that was something that kept me anchored a bit, when it sort of seemed like, okay, this is a very familiar kind of situation, just different characters in a different place. And, but yeah, I completely agree with you in that way. Like, I just feel so much better. I feel way better about just the overall season.
Yeah, I mean, do you watch Mad Men by any chance?
I haven't actually. I know a lot about it, but I've never seen it.
Well, it's fantastic. I have not seen the last 2 seasons, so I have to watch out for spoilers now at my own risk.
Yeah.
But it's every season starts off the same, where it's like, well, not the physical same, just the same emotion I get. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna like the direction this is going. And then by the end, I was like, that was the greatest thing ever. Like, what am I even thinking? But it's like, it happens every year, so maybe The Last Man on Earth is going to start doing that too. Like, it starts off great, and then the little dips in the middle will be like, I don't know if I like this. Then the end will wrap it up. I could live with that. I could live with that if it's not consistently amazing. Not every show is Breaking Bad, you know. I mean, we have our high praises, but it's tough to match that quality. One of the things that actually kept me going for the show was the cinematography. It was very like, I'm a sucker for those big landscape shots. Like, Lawrence of Arabia is one of the greatest things to me. Like, I can watch that movie all the time just because I'm like, wow, you know. And so when I get my fill of that here on a TV show, it makes me happy. When it's not like gut-bustingly funny, I'm like, oh wow, like, it actually feels like the world is empty. I've never been to Tucson, so it might just feel like that all the time.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Before we move on to the next subject, any final thoughts on the first season of The Last Man on Earth?
Like I said, a lot of things are coming into perspective now, and I kind of just kept picking up those little breadcrumbs as I went, whether it was like you said, the visual quality of the show was always really on point, especially for something that kind of delved into the sitcom territory. But yeah, I like the way that things progressed, and even though it's almost reminiscent of the beginning, it's a different situation entirely, because it's not just about this desperation to have people around to do whatever you want with. It's like, we're actually moving forward, is what it feels like. And I think that's really important, and should be really cool to see how they flesh that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see where these characters go. And that's the next little topic here. What do you want from season 2 of The Last Man on Earth, and where do you predict that this is our prediction segment for this show?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that, because I don't know how soon they might intend on like bringing the brother into play. Like, I don't know if they might kind of start doing a back and forth, because immediately my thought was like, at some point in the show, are they going to like make contact with him? Are they going to try and like go to some NASA base and like try and see if, I mean, does Phil even know where his brother last was? Like, when the world started falling apart?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah, because maybe we might start kind of looking back more at what happened before, because it's so focused in the immediate here and now. His little Tucson community is filling up, and so he's sort of entrenched in what's going on around him and wanting to have sex with everyone, and then nobody wants to have sex, and then everyone does, and then no one does, and all the distractions on the ground level. But I think that it's so freeing for the two of them to just be going now. And maybe now that he's actually being honest with himself and kind of considering what his life has come to, like, this could be the opportunity for things to go in a more like sincere direction for him, and more about like, instead of trying to just reinvent himself at every angle and failing desperately every single time, like we might kind of start to get more of like who is Phil. That's kind of something that I think that I want to see, you know, to feel more tethered to kind of like who he is and what he's about. Yeah, he's like kind of a shithole sometimes, but and it sort of makes him lovable. At the same time, I think this will be an opportunity for them to just sort of get to know each other. Like, okay, this is not like old world, new world, whatever. This is here and now. Let's go do things. So it might be a bit more of a return to like the early form, but I don't know. I don't know what I want. I kind of, yeah. It's also
well, I want just one episode focusing on his brother up in space.
Yeah.
Like we don't even need to see him like how he got up there. Just like he'll do his daily routine to check up with no Houston, hello, and then one day he just won't hear anything, and then we see how he lived up there before. Because I think you got to bring him down to earth.
Yeah.
I think somehow you just got to figure out how to do that. I don't know, it's a TV show, it's fiction. You could do whatever you want. I've seen crazier things this season on TV than someone stuck up in space.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really want to see. I want to see more Jason Sudeikis. I would like to see Alexandra Daddario come back, even though she was just a dream sequence in the pilot.
Right.
But I don't think we have enough of her like in anything ever, and so that would be cool. But that might just be anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could start seeing cast members from The Walking Dead, like in a sort of meta way, you know?
Ooh, that'd be fun.
But like let them stretch their comedic chops, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you brought Merle from The Walking Dead, but he's like the goofiest dude, like maybe he's just like smoking weed all the time, or maybe he just has like an infinite supply of mushrooms out in the desert, you know? Yeah, and they just find him just like strung up on a rock, like you know?
And this
I wanted to get goofier, that's all.
Totally. And I think that they have the opportunity to approach this whole post-apocalyptic situation in a very different way, because it's less about people showing up and more about like them showing up. So maybe they're going to find other like strongholds out here in the world and see how other people are living. And so it's sort of like what happens in The Walking Dead. We see that people have very different social structures, or whether they've isolated themselves or what they're actually doing. So this provides us with a totally fresh opportunity for them to get into something else really weird, or, you know, but I'm excited for that. I think that it's very fertile territory to explore.
Yeah, as am I. I guess one last thing. Do you think we'll ever go back to Tucson?
You know, I think it's quite possible, but sort of with the way that, like, you know, the camera sort of pans out and we're seeing them go off into the sunset, it's that kind of like, well, all in a day's work, we carry on. And like I think that they're pretty done for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if later on something brought them back. But yeah, it's really interesting that they could just totally leave all those other characters behind and just sort of as they are, because a lot of shows feel the need to be like, oh, here's what's going on there, here's what's going on there. Like they could just totally peace out and it's fresh and just kind of following these core characters. So I actually just forgot what your question was.
If we're ever gonna go back to Tucson.
Yes. It could happen. I don't think it's gonna happen soon though. I don't know.
Yeah, like if they do, I'd like to see them not go back for like a season or two.
Yeah.
And then when they do go back, it's like just filled with people. And
totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a total just like an actual society again. Like the new Phil Miller like brought it up, but then everyone always talks about the original Phil Miller and how without him putting up these signs, none of them would have found each other. So he kind of like starts getting praised instead of hated now.
Yeah, like, he sort of becomes part of like the folklore and the legend of the city. That would be pretty funny.
But then like the original crew still have trouble liking him, especially the new Phil Miller. I think that'd be a funny dynamic, but that'd be way down the line. I don't know what they got in store, but these guys might be comedy geniuses. I don't know. Maybe sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but they got good ideas. I like them.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah. I have I asked people on Twitter what they thought about The Last Man on Earth. Nobody watches it, apparently.
Yeah, like, I realized that I don't know anybody else who's actively watching the show, which is maybe part of the reason why I felt free to like take a break from it for a little while, because people weren't like going off about it. And so I was like, I'll just let this sit here for now. And yeah, that's a bummer. But I did read some interesting reviews about it, like, because I just wanted to see what other people were thinking. And seems like the general consensus is like a lot of people were scratching their heads towards the middle, and now there's a lot that's interesting and fresh, and we all feel kind of better.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster of, I don't know if I like this, to I really like this now. But
Yeah.
there was one person who did watch it, because several people replied. At first, I wasn't getting any, and I was like, God damn it, this is embarrassing. But, everyone who replied was like, I never watched it. I haven't watched it. What's that? Someone asked, what's that? I'm like, oh boy.
Oh no.
But one, Nick Hamden at Gorgon Reviews said, beginning great, middle awkward, ending F decent again. Not sure if I like the very end though. Well, Nicholas Hamden, I hope this discussion persuaded you to check it out again, because that's what I'm going to do, and I think we're both going to do it now. Yeah, because I think the ending is pretty strong. I think the opening is just such a high bar. I don't know if you can top it. Kind of like the pilot in Lost, where it's just like this huge, grand 2-hour movie, and you're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I think there's some stuff that could top a really great pilot, but you got to really like just change up your whole show. You have to like repilot, I think that's something that really top a great introduction to a TV show. But yeah, I mean, those are our thoughts on The Last Man on Earth. Do you have any final thoughts on anything Last Man on Earth related?
I don't know. I think I kind of touched on everything. The feeling better, and the being excited for what's next, and that this is the kind of show that could totally repilot itself, I think. And yeah, it was a good way to bring it all back around, but then send it in a totally different direction. So I think that was very cool and very necessary.
I agree. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up the Waffle Press TV Hangouts. Emily, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at mmightysophia, the word mighty, SOFIA, which is also my YouTube, which is also my Facebook. It's so beautiful having everything the same. And then my Tumblr, which I'm on like every couple of months, is I Am the Cruel One at Tumblr. So those are my hangouts.
All right. And then you can catch us at The Waffle Press on Twitter. You can get me at Dago Waffles on Twitter. At Audiences Everywhere. This month in May, I'm doing a lot of one-on-one discussions with people about blockbuster movies, franchises, directors. I got a couple stuff coming out. We got some Terminator talk. I think that's the first one that'll actually come out. Maybe some Michael Bay-isms. And then we got some more stuff trickling down the line. Everyone be keeping an eye out for that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I killed myself basically on some Avengers related articles because there was just so much to talk about. Check out my spoiler free and spoiler heavy written reviews, and then of course the videos that are coming out later. But that's it for us here at the Waffle Press TV Hangouts. Thank you so much for joining me, Emily.
Of course.
Yeah. Enjoy the happiest place on earth, by the way.
I will. I will.
And we have been professionally unprofessional.